The alarm clock buzzed at 6 in the morning just like every other day. Rebecca rolled over and hit the snooze button, feeling the familiar weight in her chest. 2 years ago, her life had been completely different. She was still the same successful marketing director at one of the biggest companies in the city, but everything else had changed in ways she never could have imagined. She walked down the hallway to check on her daughter. 6-year-old Lily was already awake, sitting on her bed and staring out the window. The little girl looked up when her mother entered, gave a small smile, and nodded when Rebecca asked if she was ready for breakfast. No words, though. There were never any words anymore. Rebecca remembered when this same little girl used to chatter, non-stop from the moment she woke up until bedtime. She would ask a million questions about everything, make up silly songs, and tell elaborate stories about her stuffed animals. Now, the house felt like a library where everyone had to whisper. During breakfast, Rebecca tried to make conversation like the therapists suggested. She talked about the weather, about what they might do that day, about the cartoon characters, on Lily's cereal box. Lily listened carefully and responded with nods and head shakes, but never opened her mouth to speak. Sometimes she would point to things or draw pictures to communicate, but mostly she just stayed quiet. The accident had happened on a rainy Thursday evening 2 years ago. Rebecca's husband had been picking Lily up from dance class when another car ran a red light. He died instantly, and Lily spent 3 days in the hospital with a broken arm and some bruises. Physically, she healed quickly, but something inside her had broken that day, something that all the doctors and specialists couldn't seem to fix. After the funeral, Rebecca waited for Lily to start talking again. She thought maybe her daughter just needed time to process what had happened. Days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months, and still nothing. That's when the visits to specialists began. The first doctor said it was selective mutism caused by trauma. The second doctor wanted to try different medications. The third doctor suggested it might be a deeper psychological issue that would take years to resolve. Rebecca had taken Lily to speech therapists, child psychologists, and even alternative healers. Everyone had theories, but no one had answers that actually helped. The worst part wasn't the silence itself. It was watching her bright, curious daughter slowly disappear behind walls that Rebecca couldn't break down. Lily used to love meeting new people and making friends. Now she hid behind Rebecca whenever strangers tried to talk to her. She used to dance around the house and laugh at silly jokes. Now she moved through life like she was walking underwater. Rebecca had tried everything the experts suggested. She read every book about childhood trauma and communication disorders. She learned sign language, thinking maybe that would help Lily express herself. She bought art supplies, thinking maybe drawing could be Lily's way of talking. Nothing worked the way she hoped it would. The hardest moments were the ones that reminded Rebecca of how things used to be. When they passed Lily's old dance studio, Rebecca would remember her daughter's excited chatter about the new moves she had learned. When they walked by the ice cream shop where they used to go every Friday, Rebecca could almost hear Lily's voice, asking for extra sprinkles. Work became Rebecca's escape, but even that was complicated. Her colleagues knew about the accident, and they tried to be understanding when she had to leave early for therapy appointments or when she seemed distracted during meetings. But Rebecca could feel them watching her sometimes, wondering why she couldn't just fix whatever was wrong with her daughter. The sleepless nights were the worst. Rebecca would lie awake wondering if she was doing something wrong, if there was some magic combination of words or actions that would bring Lily's voice back. She read online forums where other parents shared their stories, but most of them seemed to have children who eventually started talking again. Lily's silence felt different, deeper, like she had made a decision to stop communicating with the world. Rebecca's mother called every week to check on them, always asking the same question in different ways. Has she said anything yet? The answer was always no, but Rebecca could hear the hope in her mother's voice every time she asked. Friends from work invited them to birthday parties and family gatherings, but Rebecca usually made excuses not to go. It was too painful to watch other children Lily's age chattering and laughing while her own daughter sat quietly in the corner. Some days were better than others. On good days, Lily would smile more often or show interest in activities they used to enjoy together. She might draw a picture that told a story or nod enthusiastically when Rebecca suggested watching their favorite movie. On bad days, Lily seemed to retreat even further into herself, barely making eye contact and moving through their routine like a little ghost. This particular Saturday morning felt different, though Rebecca couldn't say exactly why. Maybe it was the sunshine streaming through the kitchen windows, or maybe it was the way Lily had actually looked at her and smiled during breakfast. Whatever it was, Rebecca felt a tiny spark of hope that she hadn't felt in months. After they finished eating, Rebecca suggested they go to the park. It was a place they used to visit all the time as a family, back when life was normal. They hadn't been there since the accident, and Rebecca wasn't sure why she suggested it now. Maybe she was feeling nostalgic, or maybe she just needed to get out of the house that sometimes felt too quiet. Lily's eyes lit up slightly when Rebecca mentioned the park, and she nodded more eagerly than usual. That small reaction gave Rebecca courage. She packed some snacks and water bottles, grabbed their jackets, and headed for the car. The drive to the park took about 15 minutes, and Rebecca found herself talking more than usual during the trip. She pointed out interesting things they passed, asked Lily questions even though she knew there wouldn't be verbal answers, and tried to create the kind of cheerful atmosphere that used to come naturally to their family. When they arrived at Riverside Park, Rebecca felt a mix of emotions. The playground looked exactly the same as it had 2 years ago, but everything felt different now. She remembered pushing Lily on these same swings while her husband grilled hamburgers at one of the picnic tables nearby. She remembered Lily's delighted squeals as she went down the slide, and the way she used to run from one piece of equipment to another, always talking about what she wanted to try next. Now, Lily walked quietly beside her mother toward the playground, taking in the sights and sounds of other families enjoying their Saturday afternoon. Rebecca wondered what was going through her daughter's mind, what she thought about when she saw other children playing and laughing together. They made their way to the swing set, which had always been Lily's favorite part of the playground. Rebecca helped her daughter onto one of the swings and began pushing gently, just like she had hundreds of times before. But this time, instead of hearing Lily's voice asking to go higher or telling stories about flying like a bird, there was only the sound of the swing's chains creaking and the distant voices of other children. Rebecca tried not to let her sadness show as she pushed the swing. She had learned that Lily was very sensitive to her mother's emotions, and Rebecca didn't want her own feelings to make things harder for her daughter. Instead, she focused on the small signs that Lily was enjoying herself. The way her daughter's shoulders relaxed, the slight smile that appeared when the swing went a little higher than usual, the way she tilted her face up toward the sun. As they swung together in comfortable silence, Rebecca found herself hoping that this visit to the park might somehow be different. Maybe being in this familiar place would unlock something in Lily's memory, some connection to the happy times they had shared here. Maybe today would be the day her daughter finally found her voice again. She had no way of knowing that across the playground, another parent was dealing with his own challenges, and that their paths were about to cross in a way that would change everything for both families. Sometimes the most important moments in our lives start with the smallest, most ordinary encounters, and this Saturday afternoon at the park was about to become one of those moments that Rebecca would remember forever. On the other side of the playground, another parent was having his own struggles. Daniel had been sitting on a bench for the past 20 minutes, watching his 4-year-old son Tommy play alone in the sandbox. Well, not exactly playing with anyone else. Tommy was building elaborate sandcastles by himself while other kids played together nearby. Daniel checked his watch again. They had been at the park for almost an hour, and Tommy hadn't spoken to a single other child. Every time a kid came near his sand creation, Tommy would look up hopefully, but then quickly look back down at his work when they walked away. It broke Daniel's heart to watch his son wanting to connect, but not knowing how to take that first step. Being a single dad wasn't something Daniel had planned for his life. 6 months ago, his wife had been deployed overseas with the military, leaving him to figure out parenting on his own. He thought he had been prepared, but watching Tommy struggle with making friends made him realize how much his wife had handled the social aspects of their son's life. Daniel worked as a children's librarian at the downtown branch, which meant he was around kids all day. At work, he knew exactly how to help shy children feel comfortable. He had special techniques for getting quiet kids to participate in story time, and he could spot a lonely child from across the room. But somehow, when it came to his own son, all that professional knowledge seemed to disappear. Tommy was naturally shy, which wasn't necessarily a bad thing. But since his mother left, he had become even more withdrawn. Daniel worried that his son was starting to believe that people always left, so why bother getting close to anyone new? The thought kept Daniel awake at night, wondering if he was doing something wrong or if there was more he could do to help Tommy feel secure. At the library, Daniel ran a special program called Quiet Heroes for children who had trouble with social situations. The program was designed to help kids build confidence through storytelling and gentle group activities. Parents often told him how much the program had helped their children, but he felt like a fraud when his own son sat alone at the playground. Daniel watched as a group of children around Tommy's age started a game of tag near the swings. Tommy looked up from his sandcastle, clearly interested in joining them, but he didn't move from his spot. Daniel had learned not to push too hard. When he tried to encourage Tommy to join other kids, it usually made his son more nervous and likely to hide behind his father's legs. The playground was busier than usual for a Saturday afternoon. Families were spread out across the area, taking advantage of the beautiful weather. Daniel noticed all the different dynamics playing out around him. Some children were natural leaders, organizing games and including everyone. Others, like Tommy, preferred to observe before jumping in. And then there were the kids who seemed perfectly content playing alone, lost in their own imaginative worlds. Near the swings, Daniel noticed a woman pushing her daughter, who looked to be a few years older than Tommy. Something about the scene caught his attention. The mother seemed to be trying very hard to engage her daughter, talking constantly and pointing things out, but the little girl never responded verbally. She nodded and shook her head, but Daniel never heard her voice, even from across the playground. As someone who worked with children every day, Daniel had developed an instinct for spotting kids who might be dealing with challenges. This little girl reminded him of some of the children who came to his library programs. Not the shy ones like Tommy, but the ones who seemed to be carrying something heavier, some burden that made connecting with the world more difficult. Daniel's attention was pulled back to Tommy when he heard his son make a small, frustrated sound. The sandcastle he had been working on for the past 30 minutes had collapsed when he tried to add another tower. Tommy's bottom lip started to quiver, and Daniel could see tears forming in his eyes. This was exactly the kind of moment that made Tommy want to give up and ask to go home. Without thinking, Daniel got up from the bench and walked over to the sandbox. He knelt down next to his son and examined the collapsed castle. "You know what?" he said gently. "I think this castle just needs some engineering help. Want to rebuild it together?" Tommy nodded, wiping his eyes with the back of his sandy hand. Daniel had learned that these moments of disappointment were actually opportunities, if he could help Tommy work through the frustration instead of avoiding it. His son might build confidence for the next challenge. They started rebuilding the castle together, and Daniel made sure to let Tommy make all the important decisions about the design. As they worked, Daniel noticed that Tommy kept glancing over at the other children, especially the quiet girl on the swings. There was something about her stillness that seemed to intrigue his son. "Dad," Tommy said quietly. Why doesn't that girl talk? Daniel looked over at the swing set, where the mother was still pushing her daughter. I don't know, buddy. Maybe she's shy like you, or maybe she's just thinking about something important. She looks sad, Tommy observed with the straightforward honesty that only children possess. Daniel was struck by his son's empathy. Despite his own social struggles, Tommy had noticed another child who might be having a hard time. What do you think we could do to help her feel better? Daniel asked. Tommy thought for a moment, his small face serious with concentration. Maybe we could share our castle with her? The suggestion surprised Daniel. Tommy rarely wanted to share his creations, especially with children he didn't know. But something about this situation was different. Maybe seeing another child who seemed to be struggling made Tommy feel less alone in his own shyness. That's a really kind idea, Daniel said. But how about we finish building it first, and then we can see if she wants to come look at it? They worked together for another 10 minutes, creating what was probably the most elaborate sand castle the playground had seen all day. Tommy's confidence grew with each successful addition to their creation. He started talking more, explaining his ideas for where each tower should go and what kind of people might live in the castle. As they put the finishing touches on their masterpiece, Tommy's ball rolled away from their spot in the sandbox. It bounced across the playground area and came to rest near the swings where the quiet girl and her mother were sitting. Tommy looked at the ball, then at Daniel, clearly wanting to retrieve it but hesitant to approach strangers. I'll come with you, Daniel offered, understanding his son's dilemma. They walked across the playground together, Tommy staying close to his father's side. As they got closer to the swings, Daniel could see the little girl more clearly. She was beautiful, with long dark hair and serious brown eyes that seemed to take in everything around her. Her mother looked tired but was trying hard to keep a cheerful expression. When they reached the area where the ball had stopped, Daniel noticed that the little girl was watching them with interest. She didn't seem afraid or uncomfortable, just curious about these new people in her space. Her mother noticed them approaching and gave a polite but cautious smile. "Excuse me," Daniel said in the same gentle voice he used with nervous children at the library. "My son's ball rolled over here. Would it be okay if we got it?" The little girl looked directly at Daniel, which surprised him. Many shy children avoided eye contact with adults they didn't know, but this child seemed to be studying him carefully. She looked at the ball near her feet, then back at Daniel and Tommy, and then clearly pointed to where the ball had landed. "Thank you so much," Daniel said, speaking directly to the girl, as if she were any other child he might meet. "You're very helpful." Something flickered in the girl's eyes when he thanked her. It wasn't quite a smile, but it was definitely a reaction. Daniel had seen this look before in his library programs, usually right before a breakthrough moment when a shy child started to feel safe enough to participate. Tommy bent down to pick up his ball, but instead of immediately walking away, he stayed near the swings. "We built a really big castle," he announced to the girl, his earlier shyness forgotten in his excitement about their creation. "It has 5 towers and a bridge." The girl's eyes widened slightly with interest. She looked over toward the sandbox where their elaborate creation was visible from the swings. Daniel could see that she was intrigued, but her mother seemed surprised by the interaction. "Would you like to come see it?" Tommy asked, with the kind of innocent directness that only children can manage. "My dad helped me build it, but I did most of the work." Daniel felt a surge of pride at his son's growing confidence, but he also noticed the hesitation in the other mother's expression. He could tell she wanted to encourage her daughter to interact with other children, but she was also protective and uncertain. "We're not going anywhere for a while," Daniel said to both the mother and daughter. "If you want to come look at the castle later, we'll be right over there in the sandbox." The little girl nodded slightly, and Daniel could see genuine interest in her expression. Her mother looked grateful for the low-pressure invitation. Sometimes the best way to help shy children connect was to remove any sense of obligation or pressure from the interaction. Rebecca watched from the swings as Daniel and Tommy walked back to their sandbox. There was something different about the way that man had talked to Lily. Most adults either ignored her completely once they realized she wouldn't respond, or they spoke to her in that special voice people use with children who have problems. But Daniel had just talked to her like she was any other kid, like her silence was perfectly normal. Lily was still looking toward the sandbox where the father and son were rebuilding their castle. Rebecca could see her daughter's interest, something she hadn't witnessed in months. Usually, Lily would watch other children from a distance, but never showed any desire to get closer. This was different. "Do you want to go see their castle?" Rebecca asked gently. Lily looked up at her mother and nodded, more decisively than she had responded to anything in weeks. Rebecca felt a flutter of hope mixed with nervousness. She didn't want to push too hard and risk Lily retreating back into her shell, but she also didn't want to miss what might be an important opportunity. They walked slowly toward the sandbox, Lily staying close to Rebecca's side but not hiding behind her like she usually did with strangers. As they got closer, Rebecca could see that the sand castle really was impressive. It had multiple towers connected by carefully molded bridges, and Tommy was adding small details like windows and doors. "Wow," Rebecca said genuinely, "that's amazing work." Tommy beamed with pride and immediately launched into an explanation of how they had built each section. "The tall tower was the hardest part because it kept falling down, but my dad showed me how to pack the sand really tight. And see this bridge? I made that part all by myself." Daniel looked up from where he was helping smooth one of the walls. "Tommy's got real talent for this. I think he might be an architect someday." Rebecca noticed that throughout Tommy's enthusiastic explanation, Lily was listening intently. Her daughter had always loved detailed stories and explanations, back when she used to talk. Maybe that part of her personality was still there, just hidden under layers of silence. "Lily loves castles," Rebecca offered, hoping to keep the conversation going. "She has a whole collection of castle books at home." "Really?" Tommy's eyes lit up with excitement. "Do you have the one with the dragon and the princess who saves herself? That's my favorite castle story." Lily's eyes widened, and she nodded enthusiastically. Rebecca recognized the book Tommy was talking about. It had been one of Lily's favorites before the accident, and she used to act out all the characters' voices when they read it together. "She knows that one very well," Rebecca said, her voice catching slightly with emotion. Daniel seemed to pick up on the undercurrent of sadness in Rebecca's voice, but he didn't ask any uncomfortable questions. Instead, he turned his attention to Lily directly. "Would you like to help us add some details to the castle? We could use someone with good castle knowledge." For a moment, Rebecca held her breath. This was exactly the kind of situation that usually made Lily retreat. Being asked to participate, to contribute something, often felt like too much pressure for her daughter to handle. But instead of backing away, Lily stepped closer to the sandbox. She studied the castle carefully, then pointed to one of the towers and made a gesture like she was drawing something in the air. "I think she's suggesting decorations for the towers," Daniel interpreted thoughtfully. "Like flags or banners, maybe?" Lily nodded and smiled. The first real smile Rebecca had seen from her in weeks. Tommy jumped up excitedly. "We can make flags! I know how to do that!" He started gathering small sticks and leaves from around the playground, chattering about different designs they could create. What happened next took Rebecca completely by surprise. Without any prompting or pressure, Lily began helping Tommy collect materials for their flags. She didn't speak, but she was actively participating, pointing out good sticks and interesting leaves. The two children worked together naturally, with Tommy providing the commentary and Lily contributing through gestures and expressions. Daniel moved over to sit next to Rebecca on a nearby bench, giving the children space to work while staying close enough to supervise. "She's very creative," he said quietly, nodding toward Lily. I can tell she has lots of ideas. She used to talk constantly, Rebecca found herself saying, surprised by her own openness with this stranger. About everything, stories, questions, observations about the world. She had something to say about everything she saw. Daniel nodded understandingly. Tommy's the opposite. He's always been quiet, but lately he's been even more withdrawn. His mom is deployed overseas, and I think he's struggling with feeling like people leave. There was something comforting about talking to another parent who understood that parenting wasn't always easy, that children could face challenges that couldn't be fixed with simple solutions. Rebecca had gotten tired of well-meaning friends who offered advice like, maybe she just needs more time, or have you tried this new therapy? They watched as Tommy showed Lily how to attach leaves to sticks to make banners for the castle towers. Lily was completely engaged, more present and focused than Rebecca had seen her in months. When Tommy asked her opinion about where each flag should go, Lily would point decisively and nod when he placed them correctly. You're really good at this, Tommy told Lily as they worked. You have the best ideas for making it look like a real castle. Rebecca saw her daughter's face light up at the compliment. Lily had always thrived on positive feedback, but she hadn't received much of it lately since she couldn't respond in the ways people expected. As they continued decorating the castle, other children started to notice their elaborate creation. A few kids wandered over to admire their work, and Tommy proudly explained how he and Lily had built it together. Rebecca watched nervously as the group grew, worried that too much attention might overwhelm her daughter. But Lily seemed to be handling the social situation better than expected. She stayed close to Tommy, who naturally took on the role of spokesperson for their project, but she didn't hide or try to leave. When one of the other children asked if they could help add more decorations, Lily looked at Tommy and nodded, apparently, agreeing to expand their building crew. Daniel leaned over to Rebecca. She's got good instincts about people. Tommy can be pretty shy with new kids, but he's completely comfortable with your daughter. I think it's because she doesn't expect him to be anything other than what he is, Rebecca replied, realizing something important about her daughter's effect on others. She's not judging him or waiting for him to perform in any particular way. The group of children worked together for about 20 minutes, with Tommy and Lily at the center of the activity. Rebecca marveled at how naturally her daughter had become part of a social group, something that hadn't happened since the accident. She wasn't talking, but she was communicating effectively through gestures, expressions, and actions. Then something unexpected happened. One of the newer children to join the group, a boy about Tommy's age, was being a bit too enthusiastic with his additions to the castle. He accidentally knocked over one of the carefully constructed towers that Tommy and Lily had worked hard to perfect. The boy immediately looked upset and started to apologize, but Tommy's face crumpled with disappointment. Rebecca could see tears forming in his eyes, and she expected him to get frustrated and want to stop playing. But before Daniel could intervene, and before Rebecca could even process what was happening, Lily did something extraordinary. She walked over to Tommy, gently touched his arm, and spoke her first words in 2 years. It's okay. Her voice was soft and a little rusty from disuse, but perfectly clear. We can fix it. It's still beautiful. The entire playground seemed to go quiet. Rebecca's hands flew to her mouth, and she felt tears instantly spring to her eyes. Daniel looked stunned, clearly understanding that something monumental had just happened. Tommy looked up at Lily with surprise and gratitude. You really think we can fix it? Yes, Lily said, her voice gaining strength. The most important part is still good. We just need to build that tower again. Rebecca stood up from the bench, her legs shaking slightly. 2 years of silence had just been broken by her daughter's desire to comfort another child. Not because a therapist had suggested it. Not because someone had been trying to make her talk, but because she had seen someone who needed kindness and had responded naturally. Daniel caught Rebecca's eye and smiled, understanding immediately the magnitude. of what they had all just witnessed. Sometimes the most profound breakthroughs happen not in clinical settings or therapy sessions, but in moments of genuine human connection when children feel safe enough to be exactly who they are. As Tommy and Lily began rebuilding their tower, together, with Lily quietly offering suggestions and encouragement, Rebecca realized that healing didn't always look the way she had expected. Sometimes it looked like two children working together in a sandbox, finding their voices through friendship and understanding. The drive home from the playground felt completely different than any car ride Rebecca and Lily had taken in the past 2 years. For the first time since the accident, Lily was talking. Not constantly, like she used to, but she was answering questions and even asking a few of her own. "Mom, can we go back to the park tomorrow?" Lily asked from her car seat, her voice still quiet but clear. Rebecca had to pull over for a moment because her hands were shaking with emotion. "Of course, sweetheart. We can go back whenever you want." "I like Tommy," Lily continued. "He's nice, and his dad is nice too." Rebecca wiped away tears that kept flowing despite her efforts to stay composed. "They are very nice. I'm so proud of how kind you were to Tommy when his tower fell down." "He was sad," Lily said simply. "I don't like when people are sad." That evening, Rebecca called her mother, something she had been dreading to do for weeks. Usually, these calls were painful because she had to report that nothing had changed, that Lily still wasn't speaking, that the latest therapy session hadn't made any difference. "Mom, I have something to tell you," Rebecca said when her mother answered the phone. "Oh, honey, what is it? You sound different." "Lily talked today. Real words, in full sentences. She comforted another little boy at the playground when he was upset." The silence on the other end of the phone lasted so long that Rebecca thought the call had been dropped. Then she heard her mother crying with joy. "Tell me everything," her mother said through her tears. "I want to hear every single detail." Rebecca found herself talking for over an hour, describing not just what had happened, but how natural it had felt, how right it had seemed. She talked about Daniel and Tommy, about the way the children had connected without any pressure or expectation. Over the next few days, Lily continued to speak, though not constantly. She seemed to be testing out her voice again, choosing her words carefully. She talked about the castle they had built, about Tommy's kindness, and about wanting to see them again. Rebecca decided to look up the library where Daniel worked. When she called and asked to speak with him, she felt nervous, like a teenager calling a boy she had a crush on. But this wasn't about romance. This was about preserving whatever magic had happened between their children. "Hi, this is Rebecca, from the playground," she said when Daniel answered. "Lily's mom." "Rebecca, how is Lily doing?" "I've been thinking about you both." "She's still talking," Rebecca said, unable to keep the amazement out of her voice. "Not all the time, but she's definitely found her voice again. I wanted to thank you." "You don't need to thank me," Daniel said warmly. "I think our kids helped each other. Tommy hasn't stopped talking about Lily since Saturday. He keeps asking when he can see her again. Actually, that's why I'm calling. I looked up your library online, and I saw that you run programs for children. I was wondering if Lily might be able to join one of them." Daniel's voice brightened considerably. "I think that would be wonderful. I run a program called Quiet Heroes every Thursday evening. It's specifically designed for children who might need a gentler approach to social interaction. Tommy goes, of course, and I think Lily would fit right in." The following Thursday, Rebecca and Lily walked into the children's section of the downtown library. Rebecca felt nervous, but Lily seemed excited. She had been talking about the library visit all week, asking questions about what they would do there and whether Tommy would be there. The children's section was warm and inviting, with colorful rugs and reading nooks that made the space feel cozy rather than institutional. When Tommy saw Lily walk in, his face lit up with genuine joy. "Lily, you came!" He ran over to them, his earlier shyness completely forgotten. "My dad said you might come to our group. We're going to read stories and do activities. It's really fun." Daniel appeared from behind one of the bookshelves carrying a stack of picture books. "Welcome to our library," he said to Lily with the same respectful tone he had used at the playground. "I'm so glad you decided to join us." The program was unlike any therapy session Lily had ever attended. There were 6 children in the group, all dealing with different challenges related to communication or social interaction. But instead of focusing on what was wrong with them, Daniel created activities that celebrated what was special about each child. They started with a storytelling circle where each child could contribute to a group story in whatever way felt comfortable to them. Some children spoke, others drew pictures, and one child communicated entirely through gestures. Lily listened carefully to everyone's contributions, and when it was her turn, spoke clearly about what she thought should happen next in the story. "The princess should help the dragon instead of fighting it," Lily said thoughtfully. "Maybe the dragon is just lonely and needs a friend." The other children loved her idea, and they spent the next 20 minutes developing a story about friendship and understanding rather than conflict. Rebecca watched from the parent seating area, amazed at how naturally Lily participated when she wasn't being pressured to perform or demonstrate progress. After the program ended, Rebecca found herself talking with other parents while the children looked at books together. She discovered that she wasn't the only parent who had felt lost and helpless when their child faced challenges. There was a community here, people who understood that healing wasn't always linear, and that sometimes the best therapy was simply being accepted for who you are. "Daniel has a gift for this," said one mother whose son had severe social anxiety. "He doesn't try to fix our children. He just creates a space where they can be themselves." Over the following weeks, Lily's confidence continued to grow. She and Tommy became close friends, bonding over their shared love of castle stories and their understanding of what it felt like to be different from other children. Tommy helped Lily practice talking to new people, while Lily helped Tommy feel brave enough to participate in group activities. Rebecca noticed changes in herself, too. For the first time in 2 years, she wasn't constantly worried about her daughter's development or frantically searching for new treatments. Lily was healing at her own pace, in her own way, and Rebecca was learning to trust that process. 3 months after their first meeting at the playground, Rebecca and Daniel found themselves having coffee while their children played at the library. They had become friends through their children's friendship, bonding over the shared experience of single parenting and the joy of watching their kids thrive. "You know what's funny?" Rebecca said, watching Lily help Tommy organize an elaborate display of toy castles they had built together. "I spent 2 years trying everything to get Lily to talk again. I took her to specialists, tried different therapies, read every book I could find. But what finally worked was just meeting the right person at the right time." Daniel nodded thoughtfully. "I think sometimes we try so hard to fix things that we forget to just let them be." Tommy's confidence has grown so much since meeting Lily, not because anyone was working on his shyness, but because he found someone who accepted him exactly as he was. 6 months after that first day at the playground, Lily started 2nd grade at a new school. Rebecca had been nervous about how she would handle the transition, but Lily surprised her by adapting well to her new environment. She still spoke, more quietly than most children her age, and she still preferred smaller groups to large crowds. But she was no longer silent. On Lily's 7th birthday, Rebecca threw a party in the same park where everything had changed. Children from Lily's new school came, along with kids from Daniel's library program. Tommy, of course, was the guest of honor besides Lily herself. During the party, Lily stood up in front of all her guests, something that would have been impossible just a year earlier. "I want to thank everyone for coming to my party," she said, in a clear, confident voice. "This park is special to me because it's where I met my best friend Tommy. Sometimes good things happen when you least expect them." Rebecca caught Daniel's eye across the picnic table, both of them remembering that first day when two struggling parents had watched their children connect over a simple sand castle. They had all learned that healing doesn't always come from trying harder or finding the right expert. Sometimes it comes from unexpected friendships, from small acts of kindness, and from people who see past our struggles to recognize our strengths. As the party continued around them, Rebecca realized that their story wasn't really about a child who stopped talking and then started again. It was about the power of human connection, about the way people can heal each other simply by offering acceptance and understanding. It was about discovering that sometimes the most profound changes happen not in clinical settings, but in everyday moments when people choose to be kind to one another. The playground where it all began was now filled with laughter and celebration, a perfect symbol of how much their lives had changed. What started as two families dealing with their own struggles had become a story of friendship, healing, and the beautiful, unexpected ways that people can change each other's lives forever.